I want you to pause and face an inconvenient truth. There are 7 invisible lands inside you, not out in society, not online, where if the unconscious walks in your mind can be swallowed from within. Have you ever found yourself smiling and talking like a perfect mask only to feel at night as if someone else is living your life for you? Have you ever been so angry you were frightened by your own anger, or suddenly believed you carried a mission to save someone, only to shatter when reality refused to obey your dream? Carl Jung called these places psychic fields, locations we drift into when the boundary blurs between the ego and the ancient forces moving underneath. Picture the soul as a city at night. On the bright main streets is the persona, the polished social face, neon lit and camera ready. Down the side alleys lives the shadow that desires, anger and fears you exiled in order to be accepted. Beneath the streets run the complexes, undigested emotional core files from childhood, able to yank your behavior with a single offhand remark. Farther out is the square, where the crowd projects its own anxiety onto the others, addicting us to collective outrage because it grants the illusion of innocence. And if you wander too close to the cathedral of the archetypes, the great primordial images, their power can rise like a flood, inflating the ego into fanaticism or crushing it into helpless victimhood. At the city's edge stand 2 gates, anima and animus, the inner feminine and inner masculine, whose imbalance can pull us either into dreamy, unreal love or into cold, heartless logic. None of these places are evil. They become dangerous only when we take up residence there without knowing where we are. If you're a modern American, busy, over-informed, time-starved, you'll recognize the tracks of these 7 lands in your everyday life. The automatic yes at work, the prickle, when someone triggers you too much, the way a lover turns angel or demon overnight, the rush of grabbing a new truth and trying to press it onto everything. Jung doesn't tell you to smother these forces. He invites you to name them, watch them and contain them so energy becomes meaning, not chaos. Because what destroys the mind isn't darkness, it's darkness that remains unconscious. So why keep watching? Because in the next minutes we'll open the map and walk these 7 locations as an inward field trip, not to be afraid, but to understand. You'll learn to catch the early signals when the persona starts to crack, when the shadow demands a voice, when a complex takes the wheel, when projection blinds you to the truth, when archetypal inflation blows you up into the chosen one, and when anima/animus drag you to split extremes. I'll give you short questions and small potent practices like slipping a heavy stone into your pocket when you feel yourself floating away, or dimming the city lights so you can see the inner stars more clearly. And if you stay with me to the end, you'll have a new language to name what's happening inside you and a way out so you don't get lost again. Are you ready to step through the first gate? We'll begin where it seems safest, the glowing downtown of the soul, where the mask is welcomed, rewarded, and all too often becomes our cell, the persona. As the lights soften, you'll notice the first shadow stirring. Let's keep going. Let's start in the brightest plaza of your inner city, the place where every sign reads, "I'm fine." It's where we learn to smile on cue, agree at the right moments, and say whatever plays well with the crowd. That's the persona, the courteous social mask that lets us move through life without too many collisions. Jung never wanted us to throw the persona away. It's like skin that lets us touch the world. But when we identify with the mask, when the plaza's neon becomes our only sun, we forget the home that waits deeper inside. Each time we forget, a shadow quietly swells. Ever walk into the office, leave your fatigue at the door, switch on perfect coworker, and nod yes to the 3rd request of the day just to keep your image clean, then sit in your car at night and feel your chest like a room with no oxygen? That's the cost of lingering on the plaza too long. The mask runs on unwritten rules. Be charming to be accepted. Don't say no if you can still take it. Protect the image first. In America, where productivity is a daily sacrament, the persona often dresses as professionalism, back-to-back meetings, 5-minute email replies, the Starbucks smile. A night shift nurse told me she trained herself to smile even with tears in her eyes because it calmed patients. A high school teacher in Houston said he's upbeat all day, then has energy only to stare at the ceiling at home. Persona is an impressive social technology. It becomes a cell when your whole life story gets locked there. Can you feel that invisible wall around you? But all things move by an old law. In antiodromia, go too far in one direction and you swing to its opposite. When the persona is stretched to the limit, the shadow snaps back like a bowstring. What we exile to keep up appearances, anger, desire, need tenderness doesn't die. It slides into the dark and waits for the lights to go out. The always gentle woman explodes because a text was left unread. The calm, rational man secretly binge escapes into a habit he can't control. On social media, the permanently positive account suddenly posts a rage storm of stories, then deletes them. The shadow isn't here to destroy you, it wants to be heard. Jung called this the psyche's compensatory principle in Dreams and Symptoms. The soul balances us by sending material that opposes our conscious stance. Picture this, it's midnight in your kitchen. The white stove light is on, a pot simmers. You clamp the lid to prevent a mess, afraid of what people will think. But steam keeps building, pressure keeps rising. Persona is the lid. Shadow is the steam. If you don't turn the heat down, you end up holding the lid barehanded, then getting burned. Don't extinguish the flame, lower the heat, and tilt the lid. Admit a portion of what you feel. Say, I'm a little angry before I'm blowing up. Write 3 honest sentences. I'm tired today. I want help. I'm afraid of being judged. Most of us in the US were trained to say, I'm good as a reflex. The soul can't live on reflex forever. Will you try one true sentence tonight? A very ordinary example, Sarah, 32, works at an agency in New York. She's the rescuer on every project, like she holds the final key. Boss loves her, teammates adore her, and she's near collapse. One night she dreams she's running across a suspension bridge over black water, hopping plank to plank, while a crowd behind her applauds. She bows and realizes she's standing on thin air. In the morning, she laughs bitterly. I've been performing too long. She starts a small ritual. Before opening her laptop, she writes 1 no. No to the 5th task. No to a 7 p.m. meeting. No to Sunday email. Not because she's selfish. How can she pour for others when her cup is dry? 3 weeks later, the headaches ease, and her dream shifts a single empty chair. Her chair waiting in the meeting room of her life. Where's your empty chair? Different angle, Miguel, 28, a software engineer in Austin. He sees himself as rational, steady, allergic to drama. He's dating Ava, a photographer he calls too emotional. When Ava names her fear of being left, Miguel cuts it off with logic. We're fine, don't be negative. One night he scrolls their chat. Ava grows quieter, then leaves the thread. He gets angry for the first time in years, but the anger turns inward. Why can't I say one warm sentence? Here Miguel's calm persona has been smothering a part of his heart. His shadow isn't rage, it's a longing to soften without losing control. He adds a simple habit, hand on chest, 3 deep breaths before replying, and try one feeling-bearing line. Sounds like you're scared. I'm here. Funny enough, warmth doesn't ruin his logic. It lets his logic meet the person in front of him. Are you using logic as armor over a wound that needs care? When persona becomes a prison, the signs are quiet fatigue without cause. Envy of people who dare to be real, doing everything right while life slides by like a windshield. Some people join the religion of productivity. Some disappear into endless shows. Some become so good they lose their own name. Jung would ask, what part have you exiled? Write its name, mean anger, desire, doing nothing, asking for help, and invite it to speak. Try active imagination. Sit close to your eyes. Let that part appear as a person or animal. What are you protecting? Listen, even if it's uncomfortable. Then answer, thank you. From now on, we'll do this differently. You won't be locked in the closet, and you don't get to drive when I'm exhausted. That's how you take back the wheel without fighting the passengers. A small practice to punch your ticket out of persona prison, the imperfect ritual. This week, do one thing good enough, not perfect. Send an email without 3 edits. Post a photo without a filter. Say, I'm not sure in the meeting. Prediction, the world won't end. You'll hear a soft click like an inner lock releasing. When you do tell us in the comments, what was your one imperfect move this week, use our channel hashtag so we can spot each other, #DropTheMask. This community exists to remind us that identity isn't a solo performance. It's a group dance where you're allowed to miss a step, then find your rhythm again. And if you're thinking, I've tried, but in certain situations I snap back to the old pattern like someone hit a button, congratulations. You've touched the hatch to a deeper level, the complex. Down there, clusters of memory emotion from the past act like magnets. A single phrase, smell, or expression triggers a tidal wave. Persona and shadow are the ground and its darkness above. Complexes are the roots where the thirst to be loved, the fear of being left, and the demand to be perfect anchor into childhood soil. In the next part, we'll take a small lamp downstairs and name those roots, why one raised eyebrow can steal your calm, and how to stop getting possessed every time that invisible switch flips. Let's go down into the basement of the soul city, away from the bright square into the damp smell of old earth and the steady drip of water. Down here, memories charged with heavy feeling have clumped into electrified clusters Jung called complexes. They aren't monsters. They're embered coals buried under ash. When enough wind comes, a phrase, a face, a scent, they flare up and briefly take the controls. You think you're still me, but a me at 13 or me at 5 has slipped into the driver's seat. The feeling is unmistakable, suddenly too intense, too scared, too certain, too hurt, as if under a spell. The danger isn't that complexes are bad, it's that they're automatic. They yank you back into the past and make the present pay the bill. Picture a Friday night in the US. You're in the grocery store holding a bunch of greens when your phone buzzes. We need to talk. 4 words from your partner and your heart drops like an elevator. Everything slows the person in front of you, even the store announcement in the air. You text back, okay, what's up? But your hands shake and your brain is already writing the breakup scene. You buy random stuff and drive home with no memory of the route. That's the abandonment complex lighting up. Maybe it grew from the afternoons your mom arrived late to pick you up, from the times your dad promised and forgot, from the long silence after family fights. You're 30, but in that flash, you're the kid standing alone by the school gates at dusk. Our strongest complexes almost always smell like childhood. Another example: at work, your boss gives blunt feedback, a bit sharp. One line, next time, be more thorough. And you flush over, explain, then stew all night. On the surface, it looks like professional pride, but deeper down, it could be a perfectionistic complex fed by a childhood where mistakes meant love was pulled away. That complex turns feedback into a verdict. It shrinks the adult into a child holding up their hand for mercy. Do you recognize that invisible wall in meetings, emails, Slack threads? Some complexes wear halos. The rescuer complex convinces us we're here to save everyone. It's sweet praise by society and secretly draining. A single mom in Ohio told me, I don't know how to say no. If someone needs me, I'm there. When I asked the last time she asked for help, she went quiet. Complexes love to dress up as virtues. We call it dedicated, hardworking, the rock, the considerate one. But look closely and you'll see many virtues are powered by old fear. Fear of being left, fear of not being good enough, fear of being unlovable. So how do you know when a complex takes the mic? Jung suggests listening for intensity, a reaction too big for the trigger, the sense of being possessed, time crunching down, the body held by the scruff of the neck, the biology matters racing heart, cold hands, tight belly tunnel vision. When these show up, give yourself 90 sacred seconds, a small temenos. Stop texting, stop sending, stop arguing. Hand on chest, 3 slow breaths. Ask quietly, who just showed up in me? Don't judge. Name it. Seems like the abandoned child is scared. Seems like the inner rescuer wants to rush in. Naming it puts the complex in the passenger seat. It's still there, but the wheel is back in your hands. A concrete practice for this week, the trigger map. Open a note and make 3 columns. 1, trigger 2 body, feeling 3, auto response plus new choice. Example, text. We need to talk. Chest tight, cold hands. Auto call repeatedly. New choice reply, what time works for you? Set a 10-minute timer, send nothing else. Do this for a week and patterns will show up like a hidden subway map. The magic of tracking is that it lifts the unconscious into light without breaking it, like switching on a flashlight without waking the whole neighborhood. Jason, 41, shared in our community that he always gets furious when his wife asks, did you do it yet? One sentence he hears is, you're useless. Tracing it back, he remembered a father who mocked him in front of relatives. My dad laughed when I dropped a glass. Everyone laughed. Jason tried a shadow dialogue. He sat quietly, invited the mocked boy to appear. He saw a kid holding a chipped glass. Jason said, I see you're ashamed. I won't let anyone laugh in your face again. The boy nodded and handed him the glass. That night, when his wife asked the same question, Jason felt the wave rising, then set the glass down, breathed, and said, "That line taps an old memory. Can we find a way to remind me that doesn't feel like criticism?" Her reaction softened. Sometimes one meta sentence turns conflict into a bridge. For complexes that take the stage hard, abandonment, perfectionism, savior, victim, add two tools, a body anchor and a container. A body anchor is something you touch when you're getting swept away, a small stone, a rubber band, a cold key. Touch it to remind yourself, I'm in the present. A container is a no instant reaction window, 24 hours before sending a hard email. A family rule, no arguments after 11 p.m., or a mailbox note where you write it all down and reread after dinner. These simple walls do what lab beakers do for chemistry containment, so energy doesn't explode. It settles and separates into understanding. I know sometimes a complex isn't only personal, it's plugged into culture. One Thanksgiving table can light up a century of history. Who sits at the head, who pours wine, who keeps quiet. Roots of the personal knot into roots of the collective. If we're not conscious, we'll look for a screen to cast our pain onto the neighbor, the opposing political tribe, the lover, the colleague. That's the bridge to the next chapter. Projection, the mind's way of protecting itself by turning the world into a hall of mirrors. But before we cross, try one simple habit that can change your life when triggered. Ask questions instead of making declarations. Am I being steered by an old memory? How much of this feeling belongs to now, and how much to then? The moment you ask, you're already halfway across the bridge. Invitation to connect in the comments. Post a one-line hashtag complex map trigger body. Feeling new choice. For example, deadline reminder, heavy chest. Ask for 15 minutes to organize and reply. When we share, we give each other courage not to fight these invisible automatic doors alone. Want to go deeper? Choose an ally in the community, someone to practice the 90-second sanctuary with for a week. Remember the drip of water in that basement? When you learn to stand there, not run, not drown, something strange happens, the drip becomes a heartbeat and the basement becomes shelter. You'll see the complex isn't here to be annihilated. It's an underground spring carrying news about needs and fears. When we listen, it stops commanding. And then, almost by itself, a small tunnel opens toward another chamber, the place where our inner images go, looking for carriers outside us. That's the maze of projection, when we put the lenses of our past onto other people and whole communities. Next time, we'll walk through that doorway and study the mirror we push out in front of us so we can draw our gaze back into our own eyes. Meet me at that bend and bring your pocket stone. The projection maze is windy. Step through the narrow door into the maze where mirrored walls reflect your face from every angle, and with just one glance, you have already found the one at fault on the other side. This is the realm of projection, the parts of ourselves we don't want to face. Desires, fears, and even our brightest unclaimed qualities get thrown onto other people like a veil. Projection breathes so quietly we mistake it for truth. We think we're seeing reality about someone else while we're actually watching our own film. Jung didn't treat projection as a sin. He saw it as an early stage of knowing. The child first meets itself in the mother's eyes. The adult first meets both shadow and gold through the way we color the world. The trouble begins only when we forget to reel the film back in. Picture a rushed American morning at a freeway at peak hour. A car cuts you off. A hard phrase shoots up from your chest. Selfish jerk. But if you slow the tape, you'll hear the quieter line beneath it. No one sees me. At work, a new colleague talks a lot. You think show off, so fake. When you settle, another ache surfaces. I wish I dared to speak up like that. In dating, someone's late for the third time. You slap on the label, unreliable, and go silent. That night in the mirror, you touch the hidden pin, the fear of being someone's third priority. Projection is a fast labeling art to spare us pain. The thicker the label, the dimmer the eyes. Projection runs in two directions, shadow and gold. Shadow is obvious. We pin on others what we refuse in ourselves. Gold is trickier. We deify the qualities we long for but haven't yet claimed: intelligence, courage, freedom, beauty. We call someone a genius, my destiny, the light of my life, and hand them the authority to price our worth. When their ordinary humanness peeks out, we crash or turn furious. So they're just normal. Truth is that gold never belonged to them. It's your asset under an alias. A young woman in Seattle adored a female film director, saying every frame spoke her heart. When she closed her eyes, she saw herself behind a camera in an empty studio, hands shaking, eyes bright. I asked, if that gold is yours, what scene will you shoot this week? She sent a 40-second clip, sunlight through a teacup. When we dare to reclaim our gold, we stop worshiping others and then collapsing and begin to truly shine. At the collective level, projection is a hot wind across dry grass. Private anxieties clump into emotional bubbles. Communities, sports teams, socials, factions, each like a giant mirror. We feel we are good, they are best, and the sensation of purity spreads like refined sugar. You scroll your feed, heart racing, at a rage bait post and hit share on reflex. People need to know this. 5 minutes later, life feels meaningful. You're on the right side. But as the day fades, the anger smells like ash. You're restless. Sleep thin. Jung warned, when crowds project individual reason unplugs, and ancient archetypes, hero, savior, victim, enemy, start shopping in our minds. Not because you're bad, because collective energy is too strong for the small jar of one person's awareness. So how do we withdraw projections without self-condemnation? Begin with a small, hard question. What in them is marking the part of me I haven't owned? If it's anger, ask, what value is this anger protecting? If it's someone's flashiness, try, what part of me that longs to be seen is waiting? With gold, swap the sigh. They're incredible for a map. If that quality is also mine, what tiny practice gives it a chair this week? A Denver dad idolized a gym regular as superhuman. Looking closer, he faced his fear of feeling clumsy at the start. He set a 10 minutes a day goal, turned away from the big mirror, and didn't let shame make him quit. 3 weeks later, he wrote, "No more superhero, just my heartbeat, and that's enough." Try the gaze reclaiming ritual today. Step 1, catch yourself slapping a label on someone on the road, in a meeting, online. Step 2, whisper. Give it back to them. Step 3, hand to chest. So what part of me is asking to be seen? Step 4, write one small 24-hour action to tend that part. Example, instead of dunking on someone showing off on LinkedIn, give your own wish to be seen. A frame post, an honest note about what you learned this week without gloss or self-deprecation. If you do it, share in the comments with #reclaimprojection. Label I used, part I'm seeing, 24H action. No judgment here. We'll patrol our gaze together to keep it clear. A small story at Thanksgiving, 2 brothers clashed over a headline. The older snapped, "You're gullible." The younger shot back, "You're arrogant." The table froze. That night, the older dreamed of a cracked mirror. Behind him, a pack of wolves. He was afraid, but when he turned, it was just the neighbor's dogs. In the morning, he called, "I think I slapped naive on you," to avoid admitting the fear in me. The younger paused, "And I slapped arrogant on you," to avoid admitting I was ashamed I hadn't read deeper. Over leftover pumpkin pie, they finally spoke about the terror of standing alone in a noisy world. When projections are named, the air changes scent. Still, there are times you'll reel projections in and feel something too big moving like a wave taller than your body. You stay calm, you name the feeling, you peel off the labels. Yet the energy still surges, a pull to do something grand, or a collapse into absolute helplessness. This signals a new threshold, archetypal flooding, when primal images overinflate or deflate the ego. The kind person may swell into savior, the sensitive into permanent victim, the clever into prophet's robe. Don't panic. You're not broken. The underground water is running strong, and it's asking for a bigger vessel. So before the next step, pocket 2 small tools, an anchor and a vessel. The anchor can be a 4-count breath, a simple mantra. I return to the body, a small stone. The vessel is a ritual to contain energy when it's too large, 10 minutes of nonstop writing. A phone-free walk. Sketch the image that's arriving. Light a candle and say, I will listen, but I won't act yet. Tell us in the comments which anchor and vessel you'll use. Add hashtag anchor and vessel so we can find each other and trade ways to moor the boat when storms come in. As you practice withdrawing projections, both the dark and the golden, something odd happens. The mirror thins, the eyes clear, and the person before you gains real features, not a stage for your story, but a fellow soul also finding their way. From here, Jung's path opens to a new chapter, meeting ancient forces not as labels or tantrums, but as underground rivers with massive current. That's when we learn to earth that power, how not to puff up into myth, nor collapse into nothing. In the next part, we'll stand by that river, archetypal inflation, and learn how to build banks and bridges so the water can pass without washing away the house in it. If you're ready, bring your anchor, bring your vessel. Tonight, ask your dream to send a map. In the morning, we'll read it together. Stand at the edge of an underground river within you. Its waters dark green, quiet yet pulling with the force of an ocean. This is where the archetypes pass the ancient patterns of the hero, the mother, the savior, the martyr, the sage. Jung did not see archetypes as ideas to believe in, but as energies to live with. When the vessel of our consciousness is too small and the current too strong, we fall into archetypal inflation, swelling like a soap bubble, believing I am chosen, I cannot fail, or collapsing like a wet paper bag. I'm only a victim of fate. Both are dangerous because they pull us away from the solid ground of the everyday ego, where meals must be cooked, floors swept, bills paid, and apologies spoken. Meet Alex, 29, founder of a startup in San Francisco. After a seed funding round, Alex began to speak in the language of the savior. We will liberate humanity from stagnation. The team was inspired at first, then exhausted. Feedback was brushed aside with iron faith. Anyone who doubts lacks vision. One night, Alex dreamed of standing on a rooftop, shouting through a megaphone to the city below, but no one looked up. Only the wind answered. The next morning, the CFO laid down a sheet, only 7 months of runway left. Free fall. Here the hero had taken the wheel. Recovery didn't come through self-blame, but through widening the vessel every Monday, 1 hour of reality check, reading only numbers. Every day, one user exercise, solving one real problem for one real customer. Every week, contrarian listening, inviting a critic. After 3 months, the dream shifted. Alex now stood on the ground floor, speaking softly to a single user holding the product. No more wind, there was dialogue. Priya, 35, teaches yoga in Los Angeles. She lived in the gentle glow of the healer. She never got angry, never complained, never refused. Until her boundaries tore students, texted at midnight, colleagues help me a little became, do it for me. Priya began to resent her own profession. In therapy, she realized she had fused with the image of purity until real feelings seemed like dirt. She chose a simple ritual with strong medicine sweeping the studio. Every evening, she swept floors, washed mats, polished mirrors. Dust water, the smell of cleanser, pulled the healer from the clouds down to the tiles, from abstract to concrete. On the dressing room wall, she posted, "Healing begins with paying rent on time." Mundane, yes, but it was the anchor that kept vast energy from blowing off the roof. Nate, 26, wandered into online forums exposing the truth. He slept little, ate poorly, his eyes always blazing like 3 espressos deep. He called himself the warrior of truth. Anyone who disagreed was a sheep. But when his girlfriend left, when his phone went silent as a desert, Nate found that truth didn't warm a room. He tried a life-saving discipline, 2 verifiable claims per day. Each day he chased no more than 2 things that could be checked with real data. The rest he shut the laptop, walked 30 minutes in the sun, washed dishes slowly. After a month he wrote, "Turns out the world doesn't need me to be a thunder god. I need me to be human." Linda, 47, living in Ohio, had just gone through a heavy divorce. She sank into the eternal victim. Every story ended with, "There's nothing I can do." Friends grew tired. She grew lonelier, convinced life was unfair. Jung would call this archetypal deflation, the other pole of inflation. Therapy offered her a gentle, sharp tool, 2-degree turns. Not forced positivity, just small acts of agency, from "I'm stuck" to "I choose to call a second lawyer." From "I was abandoned" to "I'll invite a friend to Sunday lunch." After 6 weeks, her stories had a new rhythm, still sad but with hands on the wheel. So how do we cross the flood of archetypes without being swallowed? Jung emphasized 2 words, containment and concretion. Containment is building a vessel's time space and safe community where big energies don't explode. You can create your own temenos, a desk corner with a candle, a stone, a journal. Whenever you feel chosen or utterly powerless, sit there for 15 minutes. Write nonstop about the figure rising inside, what it looks like, how it speaks, what it demands. Give it a name: the rash savior, the sleepless prophet, the endless victim. Once named, it becomes a guest, not the master. Concretion is pulling energy to the ground through small, tangible acts. If the hero surges instead of preaching, fix one bug wash, the dishes make a call to apologize. If the victim swells instead of lying still, send one email, step into sunlight for 10 minutes, eat a warm meal. If the prophet rises instead of posting grand speeches, read a dry report and jot down 3 uncertainties. I often use the quick trio called Saltstone Calendar, a warm salt bath release, energy holding a smooth stone anchor the body, and opening the calendar to set a real deadline. Replace vagueness with structure. You don't have to do this alone. Let community become the riverbank. In the comments, try writing a line in the format #anchor and vessel archetype flooding containment, ritual concrete act today. Example: Savior surging, 15 minutes of nonstop writing. Call a critic, solve one case only, take no more. Sharing invites us all to come back to earth. You can even choose an anchor buddy text, each other a symbol, when you spot inflation, when puffed, when collapsed, as a nudge to take one grounding action. A subtle note: inflation often rides on 2 streams. Jung named Eros connection feeling and Logos discernment reason. When the vessel is small, Eros inflates into love saves all, blurring boundaries, overpromising, while Logos inflates into iron truth, flattening all nuance. And when deflated Eros becomes dependent, Logos turns coldly skeptical. Unless we understand these streams within the anima and animus, we'll keep inflating and collapsing with the tides of outer life. That's why the next step of our journey opens a double door, teaching Eros to embrace without devouring and Logos to cut without wounding. In other words, teaching anima and animus to stop fighting for the throne and begin their inner marriage. Before we cross into that part, I invite you into a 90-day oath of the small. Choose one daily act, repeated 15 minutes of walking, 10 lines of journaling, 1 home-cooked meal, 1 listening call. Do it as ritual, regardless of emotional weather. The small act is the anchor that holds the boat when the floodwaters rise. If you wish, post your oath with the hashtag numbered 90 days small acts. We'll count the days together and lift one another when the waters surge. Listen, can you hear it? In the distance, the river is changing course. When we learn to build banks and reinforce the shore, the river no longer threatens. It becomes a channel to carry life farther. From here, we branch into another stream where Eros and Logos learn to walk side by side, where soft voice and sharp blade no longer cancel each other. I'll meet you in the next section. Anima and Animus, where we practice the art of loving without losing ourselves, deciding without turning to stone. Bring your stone and don't forget your calendar. The inner marriage likes to begin on time. Open the double doors at the center of the soul, on one side soft as water, on the other sharp as a blade. Jung called these 2 currents Eros and Logos, and he gave them 2 interfaces. Anima, the feminine soul emotion connection, intuition, and Animus, the masculine soul discernment, will structured speech. Every person carries both, regardless of gender. When one side dominates, life becomes a tilting boat. Lean too far into Eros, and we dissolve into dreams, rescues, and illusions of saving love. Lean too far into Logos, and we harden into pronouncements, living in the brittle world of right versus wrong. The danger is not in Eros or Logos themselves, but in the loss of dialogue between them. This practice is the art of repairing the small bridge that connects the 2 shores. Meet Mark, 33, a film editor in Chicago. Mark loved women the way he loved cinema. Eyes glowing, soundtracks swelling. In each romance, he created a perfect cut where his partner became the muse, a radiant anima in golden light. But in real life, partners left dishes in the sink, replied while tired, or had quiet days. By minute 27, Mark's reel broke from devotion to disillusion. "You've changed," he would say, when in truth it was his fantasy that cracked. In therapy, Mark tried active imagination. He closed his eyes and invited his anima to appear. A woman in blue emerged, touching the surface of the water. She said, "You love images, learn to love the trembling hand that holds the camera." Mark began practicing a bridging sequence. Heart speaks, spine speaks, words follow. Before confessing love or anger, he wrote 2 sentences of feeling. "I miss you, I'm hurt." 1 sentence of structure, "I need a reply within the day." "I need you not to overpromise," then sent the message. 3 months later, he reported the golden glow remained, but stood beside the real woman, not over her. His anima stopped being an exclusive muse and became a source of inspiration who also cooked dinner. On the opposite shore is Elise, 36, a product manager in Seattle. Elise was sharp, every sentence precise. Yet at night she heard an inner council of male voices, faster, better, prove yourself. Jung called this the overpowered animus opinions, hard as steel. It drove Elise's career but eroded her heart. She tried a ritual I call the 5-chair council. Before a hard decision, she wrote down 5 inner seats: intuition, anima, empathy, eros, facts, logos, boundaries, animus, and neighbor. The ordinary outsider. Each spoke 2 sentences. Elise wrote them all without interruption. Then she, the chairperson, chose one small action within 24 hours. To her surprise, when anima and animus were heard equally, choices softened. She also practiced a 2-step speech style: begin with heart, close with spine. In meetings, she said, I sense the team is exhausted heart. I propose we freeze new features and lock specs by 5 p.m. spine. People breathed easier and progress continued. Don't think anima and animus only live in romance or offices. Jordan, 30, non-binary, a barista in Austin, swung constantly between embrace all and cut everything off. When their mother asked for moving help during a week of night shifts, Jordan said yes. Eros then vanished on the day animus backlash. They began keeping an Eros Logos index each night, scoring 0-10 on connection and discernment. The goal wasn't 10-10 perfection, but a flexible 60-40 depending on the day. Weeks heavy on Eros, Jordan added polite refusal templates. Weeks heavy on Logos. They scheduled slow dinners with friends. Over time, swinging became rhythm. Jordan knew which side to lean into and, more importantly, how to return to center. Some days you'll notice yourself pouring out long feelings and forgetting boundaries. Try heart, spine, word on paper before you speak. Heart, what do I feel? What value is touched? Spine, what boundary needs to be stated? Time, budget, energy. Word, craft 1 or 2 sentences without excess apology, without blame. In tough situations, add the 3 C's. Curious, concrete, compassionate. With a partner who's late, I'm curious what held you up, curious. Next time I need a plus 10-minute window or a quick text, concrete. I want us to feel like priorities, not burdens, compassionate. When anima opens the heart and animus plants the stake, the bridge can bear the storm. For born healer strong, anima weak, animus relentless, 1 heartfelt no per day. Just 1, I can't this afternoon, but Thursday at 4:30 I'm free for 20 minutes. The guilt you feel is the sign your vessel is growing. For born rationalist strong, animus hungry, anima, practice 1 unqualified emotional expression. I feel sad. I need a hug. You may tremble, that's the sound of the bridge no longer rusting. And if you're swept into absolute discourses, thunderbolts of right and wrong, invoke the 24-hour delay rule for public statements. In those hours, fold laundry water plants, then write 3 things you're uncertain about. Animus detoxes through structured humility. So I invite you into a small community game, #handshake Eros Logos. In the comments, write 2 sentences. 1 heart says, 1 real feeling. Spine chooses 1 boundary or action within 24 hours. Example, heart says I'm tired. Spine chooses decline the 7 p.m. meeting. We won't fix each other. We'll stand as bridges for each other so each can take 1 steadier step. One more story like a desk lamp. Dana and Reed, a couple in Minneapolis, argued endlessly about money. Dana used Eros, I'm afraid we'll be unsafe, but offered no proposal. Reed used Logos, numbers don't lie, and wielded a spreadsheet like a sword. They tried a 15-minute intermarriage ritual every Sunday, 5 minutes each, speaking only. Heart, no numbers, 5 minutes each, speaking only, spine, figures and limits. Then 5 minutes negotiating 1 small step, like moving 2% of income into savings. After 4 weeks, they weren't richer, but their living room was quieter. Money became a language, not battlefield. When anima and animus signed inside, the marriage outside shook less. You may ask, how do I know if I'm speaking from anima, animus, or just habit? The sign is in the quality of the air after your words. True anima creates warmth. True animus creates clarity. If the room grows cold and tense, beware, that's their shadow. False animus, syrupy sweetness that erases yourself. False animus, icy steel that severs others. If you catch yourself in shadow, don't punish. Add a repair phrase. Let me try again. I want to be both warm and clear. Then repeat, using heart, spine word. And because we are walking through 7 dangerous places, remember imbalance of anima/animus often spills into inflation, projection complexes, and even cracks in persona. This bridge connects everything we've been exploring. Walk it daily with one warm and clear sentence, one small decision with both heart and spine, and your inner map begins to cohere into a livable city, bright squares, warm basements, rivers with banks, mirrors that can be cleaned, and bridges that hold. As we close this journey through the 7 dangerous lands of the psyche, I want you to imagine your inner city just before dawn. The bright square of persona has gone quiet. The alleys where the shadow lives no longer threaten like midnight. The basement of complexes beats like a steady heart. The mirrors of projection have been wiped clean with a damp cloth. The river of archetypes has calmed its banks, now holding strong, and the bridge of anima and animus glimmers like a silver spine steady enough for you to cross even in strong winds. You haven't destroyed anything, you've simply learned how to walk through without losing yourself. In Jung's voice, this is the beginning of individuation, coming home to yourself while still leaving space for others to live beside you. What destroys the mind is not darkness itself, it's darkness abandoned. The places we've traveled, mask shadow childhood roots, projection inflation, anima and animus are not enemies. They are terrain, and every terrain has footpaths, signposts, resting spots. When you know how to pause, how to name the right part, how to plant a small ritual in the middle of a big wave, the psyche doesn't drown. It becomes the rower who knows the shoreline, who reads the water, who turns the boat when the weather shifts. Jung reminded us we do not reach the light by imagining light, but by making the darkness conscious. Today, you've done exactly that, lit a lamp in every room. I want to give you a simple 7-day map to remember your way back. Day 1, give your performing self a rest. Say one true thing instead of one polite thing. Day 2, draw a line down a page. Write a trigger that makes you feel like a child again. Then choose one tiny new response. Day 3, catch a label you've stuck on someone, pull it back to your own chest, and ask what need it hides. Day 4, when energy feels too big, sit at your small desk and write nonstop for 10 minutes. Then ground yourself with a concrete act, wash a dish, fix a detail. Day 5, choose an anchor and a vessel to carry through storms, a stone in your pocket, a breath reminder, a silence ritual. Day 6, practice the handshake between heart and spine. Say one word of gratitude, then one clear boundary. Day 7, reread your week like a weather diary, smiling at the slips, for storms are part of the season. These small, repeated acts secretly pour concrete into the foundation of your life. You may wonder, can I really change? Remember the stories we've shared? Alex grounding the savior with a weekly reality check. Priya pulling the healer down from the clouds with a broom and a mop. Nate taking off the warrior of truth armor to return to being human, walking in the sun. Washing dishes, checking 2 facts a day. Mark inviting anima to sit beside a real person with the rhythm, heart, spine word. Elise opening the 5-chair boardroom in her mind, so logos no longer rants and eros no longer dissolves. These shifts aren't loud, they're steady like stones beneath a table's legs. If you'd like, leave a whisper to yourself in the comments. Next week, I'll do one small, steady act so I don't linger too long in the land of. Then name it persona, shadow complex projection, inflation, or anima/animus. Add one 10-minute action in the next 24 hours, a heartfelt no, a text of apology, a short journal entry, a walk, a home-cooked meal, a reread before hitting send. Use the hashtags we've seeded to find each other in the crowd. Drop the mask, Hishard, complex, map, take back projection, our anchor and vessel, anima, animus, handshake. Keep it short. Let the community do the rest, nodding, holding, lifting. And yes, I invite you to subscribe not for the algorithm, but because we're building a safe space for depth. When you click subscribe and ring the bell, you're making a promise to yourself each week. Take one step into the forest and learn one new way back home. In coming videos, we'll dive into the language of dreams, practice active imagination, and decode the symbols that visit in the night. If there's a topic you want on the table, the inner mother and boundaries, when love feels like a long dream, or working with anger, leave it in the comments. Every comment is a paving stone for all of us. And since this is YouTube, not a therapy room, let me remind you, what you hear here is for education and practice. If your waves are too strong, If sleep breaks, if sorrow eats into meals and work, that's the time to invite a professional to walk with you. Strength is not doing it all alone. It's knowing when to call for help in the night. Before we part, let me place a hand on my chest and bless your journey. May the mask that helps you be polite grow tired enough to let your true face breathe. May your shadow stop being locked away and become your guide. May your old roots reveal water instead of chains. May the mirror return your gaze to your own eyes. May the great river carry just enough for your boat to go far without flooding its banks. And may the bridge between heart and spine be steady as a promise. If these moments touched you, leave one line I will begin at, and my 10-minute action is, we'll read smile and remember your name when needed. And if you know someone standing on the edge of a dangerous land smiling in the square, but breathless in the car, send them this video like a flashlight. Because the way home is always brighter when two walk together. I'll see you in the next video where we'll open the door of night and listen to the language of dreams where the soul keeps whispering even after the eyes close.